Nobody tells you about this part. They tell you about the power. They tell you about the crown. They tell you about the view from the top. Nobody tells you about the silence. The throne room at midnight. The feast with no guests. The victory with no one to call. You wake up one day and realize you've outgrown everyone. Not because you're better, because you're different, because the frequency I'm broadcasting now, they can't pick it up anymore. And that's not their fault. It's just physics. But physics doesn't make it hurt less. Let me say what you've been feeling but couldn't name. This is the loneliest journey a soul will ever experience. Not because you're unlovable. Not because you're broken. Not because you did something wrong. Because you're waking up in a world that's still asleep. You're seeing things they can't see. You're feeling things they can't feel. You're knowing things they can't know. And when you try to tell them, they look at you like you're speaking another language. You are. You're speaking the language of the future, and they're still living in the past. The loneliness isn't a punishment, it's a side effect. A side effect of outgrowing every container that used to hold you. The friends who used to get you, they don't anymore. The family who used to comfort you, they confuse you now. The love that used to fill you, it feels empty. Not because they changed, because you did. And that change, it's necessary. But necessary doesn't mean easy. Necessary means you do it anyway. Even though it's killing you, even though you cry alone, even though no one understands, you'll do it anyway. 'Cause staying small would kill you faster. You said it plain, you said it real, you said it like someone who's been through the fire and stopped pretending it didn't burn. Kings are alone at the top. Not because they want to be, because they have to be. The view from the throne shows things that people on the ground can't see. The weight of the crown is carried by a neck that no one else can strengthen. The decisions of a king affect millions, but are made in absolute solitude. This is the price. Nobody talks about it because it doesn't sell, it doesn't inspire, it doesn't make people want what you have. But it's real, and you're living it. You've said something that broke me when I read it. You have to accept not everybody is going to accept you. Not everybody. Not even most. Not even the ones who used to. The people who love the old you, they don't recognize the new you. The people who supported the small you, they feel threatened by the growing you. The people who were comfortable with the asleep you, they're terrified of the awake you. And they won't accept you. Not because they're bad, because they can't. Because your frequency doesn't match theirs anymore. Because your light shows shadows they're not ready to see. You have to accept that, not resent it, not fight it, not beg them to change. Accept it like you accept that winter follows fall, like you accept that the sun sets, like you accept that water is wet. It's not personal, it's physics, and physics doesn't care about your feelings. You named them, every single one, not hiding from them, naming them. Betrayal. The ones you trusted most, showing you that trust was a gift they didn't deserve. Heartbreak. Love that left before you were ready to let it go. Sorrow. Grief that sits on your chest like a permanent weight. Anxiety. The future's screaming at you while you're trying to survive the present. Depression. The absence of feeling that feels worse than any pain. The worst feelings you'll ever experience. You're not exaggerating. You're not being dramatic. You're telling the truth. And here's the truth about those feelings. They are real. They are valid. They are necessary. And they will pass. Not because you wish them away. Not because you think positive. Not because you manifest harder. Because everything passes. Everything. The worst night of your life It ended. The moment you thought would kill you. You're still here. These feelings are not your destination. They are your passage. The fire you walk through to become what you're becoming. The pressure that turns coal into diamond. The winter that every spring requires. Every god goes through this, not metaphorically, literally. Before the resurrection, the crucifixion. Before the light, the darkness. Before the throne, the fire. You are not being punished, you are being forged. The betrayal, teaching you who to trust. The heartbreak, teaching you how to love yourself. The sorrow, teaching you the depth of your own feeling. The anxiety, teaching you that you can survive the future. The depression, teaching you that you can sit in the dark and still exist. Every single thing you're feeling right now. It's curriculum. It's the training ground for the god you're becoming. It's the pressure that's going to make you unbreakable. And here's what makes this different from regular suffering. You know why you're here. You know this has purpose. You know this is preparing you for something. You don't just suffer, you suffer forward. You take the pain and you point it toward your destiny. That's not masochism. That's alchemy. You said it's going to be very lonely at the beginning. Very sad. Very lonely. Yes, the beginning is the hardest part. The beginning is when you're leaving the old world but haven't arrived at the new one yet. The beginning is when you're between frequencies, too awake for the asleep, not yet connected to the other awake. The beginning is the void, and the void is terrifying. The void is where you meet yourself with no distractions. The void is where you find out if you're real or just a collection of other people's opinions. Most people never enter the void. They turn back. They go back to the old world, the old people, the old self. They choose comfort over destiny. Not you. You're in the void, and you're still walking, still breathing, still becoming. That's not weakness. That's the bravest thing a soul can do. Walk through the emptiness where no one is watching. Keep going when no one is cheering. Believe when belief has no evidence. That's you, right now, in this moment. Reading these words, that's you. You called it the path of the journey. Our very own trials and tribulations. Not trials and tribulations like something happening to you, like something you're walking through. This is the path. This is the only way to where you're going. There is no shortcut around the loneliness. There is no bypass around the heartbreak. There is no teleport past the depression. The only way through is through. And here's what they don't tell you about going through. You change. Not at the end, along the way. Every step, every tear, every sleepless night. You're not the same person who started this journey. That person couldn't have handled where you're going. That's why the journey is necessary. That's why the trials exist. That's why the loneliness is required. You're being prepared, not punished, prepared for a throne that requires a spine that's been through fire, for a crown that requires a head that has been bowed and survived, for a kingdom that requires a king who knows what it costs to rule. You said it, plain and true. Kind of truth that only comes from someone who's been there. It's going to pass. Not, it might pass. Not, I hope it passes. Not, eventually it could pass. It's going to pass. Certainty. Not wishful thinking. Certainty. Because, something that people who haven't been through this don't know. Everything passes. Everything. The good passes, so you can appreciate it. The bad passes so you can survive it. The neutral passes because that's what time does. This moment, this loneliness, this heartbreak, this depression, it's going to pass. Not because you'll forget it, because you'll be different on the other side. Because the version of you who's holding this pain right now, they won't exist forever. They're becoming someone else, someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who can look back at this moment and say, that was the fire that made me. You said every God needs to understand this. Yes, because if you don't understand the loneliness, you'll think you're broken. If you don't understand the trials, you'll think you're being punished. If you don't understand that it passes, you'll think this is forever. Every God needs to know. You are not alone in your aloneness. This is the path. This is the price. This is the passage. Every God who ever sat on a throne, they sat alone first. Every God who ever changed the world, they were misunderstood first. Every God who ever loved truly, they were broken first. You are in good company, the best company. The company of those who went through the fire and came out holding the flame. And then one day, something shifts. Not because your circumstances change, because you do. You look at the loneliness, and it doesn't feel like emptiness anymore. It feels like space. Space to hear yourself. Space to become yourself. Space to be yourself without performing for anyone. You look at the heartbreak, and it doesn't feel like loss anymore. It feels like room. Room for new love. Room for self-love. Room for the kind of love that doesn't leave. You look at the depression, and it doesn't feel like death anymore. It feels like winter. And you know, because you've survived every winter so far, that spring always comes. You're not happy. Not yet, but you're okay. And okay after what you've been through is a kind of victory. So here's what I need you to hear. Here's what every God needs to hear when the loneliness feels like it's going to swallow them whole. You are not failing. You are becoming. You are not broken. You are being reshaped. You are not alone. You are walking the path that every God before you walked. The loneliness is real. The sadness is real. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the anxiety, the depression, all real, all valid, all part of the journey. And they will all pass, not because you ignore them, because you walk through them, because you feel them fully and keep going, because you refuse to let them be the end of your story. You are a God, not in spite of this, because you survived what would have destroyed anyone else, because you kept walking when walking felt impossible, because you're still here, still reading, still breathing, still becoming. The throne is waiting, the crown is yours, the kingdom is coming. But first you walk through this, alone maybe, but not lonely forever, just for now. And now, it's going to pass. Now, go to the comments, write these 6 words. I am walking through it alone, not as a complaint, as a declaration, as a recognition, as a marker on the path that future gods will find and know. Someone else was here. Someone else survived. I can too. And if you know someone in the fire, someone in the void, someone who thinks they're the only one, send them this. Tell them to write it too. We don't walk through it together, but we walk through it at the same time, and knowing that that's enough. You are a God. You are walking through the fire. You are becoming what you're meant to be, and it's going to pass. It always does. It always will.